I am not in my regular filming spot, and that is because I'm in Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. Something that just weeks ago I was not going to do. I wasn't going to do the RNC or the DNC, and then we got 3 weeks of insane political news. And I figured, let's go out there. Let's see what happens. So I was able to get credentialed. I have access. We're going to be doing some interviews this week. Flew in on Sunday. Almost didn't make that flight because I had a motorbike accident the day prior. To which you might look at me and go, Phil, you don't seem like a guy that rides dirt bikes. And my response to that is, yeah, no, you're right. But luckily, given how stupid my crash was, the cut wasn't too deep. And so I'm here to see what pops off. And so since we're going to be talking about a lot of this stuff this week, it feels like the right place to start is to talk about the Democrats actually releasing an official party platform. Because it just got released before the convention started. Though, technically it still needs to be voted on at the DNC, but that'll just kind of be a rubber stamp procedure. But this entire plan, it's 90 pages, so that also means I'm not going to get into every little detail here. But the titles of the 9 chapters, they give you a good idea of what's on their mind. All right, we're talking about the economy, tax cuts, fighting rising prices, energy, gun crime, voting and civil rights, the border, international leadership, and also a section about some of the particular projects that they want to finish that Biden started. And that is a quirk of the platform, right? It was finalized by a committee back in July, days before he dropped out of the race. So of course, with that, they really wanted to hammer in his achievements and policies that he's taken a special interest in. And looking into the specifics a little bit more, you can see there's a big emphasis on prices for everyday Americans. The document is very critical of price gouging by industries like oil and pharma, which seems to feed perfectly into remarks Harris made this weekend about fighting price gouging on things like food. Also, in another angle of attack for this issue, the party wants to push for a $15 an hour minimum wage. The platform also really emphasizes home prices, with it on one hand claiming that more people own homes today than did before the pandemic, and we're seeing fewer foreclosures than at any time in decades. So there's a question about what data they're using, because foreclosures seem to have gone up 136% since 2021, according to the real estate firm Adam. Though notably that is still lower than pre-pandemic levels. But then on the other hand, it also highlights that more needs to be done, with the party saying it wants to cut red tape to help more home builders get federal financing, as well as proposing a $10,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers. So at the same time, you have Harris just announcing that she actually wants it to be over double that. It also wants to tackle housing for renters, with one of the proposed ways being limiting how much a corporate landlord can raise rents year over year. And so the plan would make it so that they can either cap rent increases at 5% per year or lose a big incentive they currently have. Also, another thing that'll probably resonate with a lot of voters are the proposed tax cuts, right, with these meant to target lower and middle income households, which is the vast majority of the country. And the chapter on this starts with a hedge fund manager or CEO should never pay a lower tax rate than a teacher or firefighter. A company with billions of dollars in profits should not pay $0 in taxes. It also goes on to say that trickle-down economics doesn't work and has never worked. So to that end, it highlights all the times the Democrats have tried to lower taxes only for Republicans to block them, such as when Republicans blocked the renewal of a pandemic-era child tax credit that saved about 40 million families up to $3,600 per child per year, or how they want to defund the IRS's free tax filing tool, which was successfully piloted this year. Well, that's saving a lot of people a ton on fees, cutting out annoying companies like TurboTax, which only exists because of lobbying against the IRS having its own system. Also, to offset the tax cuts for most Americans, the party wants larger tax burdens for the wealthiest Americans and corporations. Stuff like a minimum 25% tax rate on billionaires and an end on capital gains for millionaires so they pay the same rate on investment income as on wages. And there are a ton of other numbers to throw around here, but something that's been highlighted that really stood out was that corporations are seeing record margins, but their share of federal taxes has fallen below 10%, down from 30% in the 1950s. But also, none of that tax policy should be surprising since it's like Democratic Policy 101. Paid leave also stood out, with the party wanting a program that would give Americans 12 weeks paid leave to deal with the birth of a child, to take care of an ill family member, or many other circumstances. It also noted that America is the world's only advanced economy not to guarantee paid leave, and saying that the vast majority of employers don't offer it, and nearly 3/4 of private sector employees don't have paid family leave through their jobs. And then the last thing on businesses is that the document goes really hard on blaming them for the huge increase in prices lately. Like, obviously inflation played a role, but the party is emphasizing that while profit margins continued to rise for companies, they also took the opportunity to hike up the prices. Also, other big policy pushes include shifting energy jobs away from things like coal and oil and towards clean energy, which has been a mission of the party for over a decade now. Education also has a huge segment dedicated to it, including the emphasis on making sure young kids have access to preschool. With that, then allowing parents to work more, and so the party sees it as a win-win. The Dems also really push that a post-secondary education is a major policy point. And notably they're not saying that you need to go to college, especially with the rising costs, but even going to a trade school would be sufficient to propel most people well into the middle class. And at the same time, it wants to lower the loan burden on professions like teachers, which are already severely underpaid. Now, with all that said, and while understanding I'm not hitting every single policy point, because again, 90 pages. One thing that the entire agenda was silent on was an arms embargo regarding Israel, with it just in general saying that it supports Israel while at the same time pushing for a ceasefire, which is probably not what the pro-Palestinian protesters out here at the DNC are going to want to see right now. Which on that note is going to be one of the things to keep our eyes peeled for, with reports saying that it's expected that there will be tens of thousands of protesters across at least 6 major protests. But for now, we're gonna have to wait to see how today and just really this whole week is gonna play out. And then, for those of you looking to kickstart a business, showcase homemade crafts, start a personal blogger, maybe even sell merch, I got a great solution for you. Because any business, hobby, or side hustle, it needs an online destination, and today's fantastic sponsor, Squarespace, they've got you covered. Now, Squarespace has partnered with the PDS for years, and I can honestly say it is a breeze. There are no installations, no patches, no updates needed ever. If you need a starting point, they've got a ton of stunning professional templates and drag and drop editing in their Fluid engine, which makes site design incredibly simple. There's no coding required. Hell, they'll even handle all the production and shipping so you can launch and maintain your own merch business. Plus, with Squarespace, you get access to all their marketing tools and analytics and their award-winning customer care team via email or live chat 24/7. So do the smart thing. Go check it out. See why so many others love it. See why you're going to love it. And start your free trial today over at squarespace.com/Phil. And just remember, when you're ready to launch, to use offer code Phil for 10% off your first purchase. That's squarespace.com/Phil, or just scan the QR code on screen. And then we've got to talk about Swifties for Trump, which may sound insane when it hits your ears, but I mean, it was trending all over the weekend. Right? A major part of the conversation of Taylor Swift fans supporting Donald Trump for president stemmed from this viral TikTok, with the creators saying that a number of Swifties are now backing Donald Trump after 3 of Taylor's shows were canceled in Vienna because of an alleged terror threat.
And a lot of them are just saying, you know, if Trump was in office, this would have never, ever happened.
Right, and that video has gotten hundreds of thousands of views on TikTok, but it also quickly made its way over to X, where it's been shared countless times by Trump supporters. Although this, as many on the other side have claimed that the whole thing doesn't make any sense, saying things like, how I sleep knowing the Swifties for Trump motherfuckers aren't actually Swifties and have never once genuinely sat down and listened to Taylor Swift speak about her opinions on Trump. And there, many pointing to when Taylor very openly spoke out against Trump back in 2020 and threw her support behind Biden and Kamala Harris. But as this idea spread online, more and more AI-generated and fake images have popped up depicting Swifties and even Taylor herself backing Trump's campaign, with Trump himself even reposting several of them on Truth Social, including this propaganda-style poster of Taylor dressed up as Uncle Sam, and among the pictures was a headline claiming that Swifties are turning to Trump after the Vienna shows got canceled. And it is worth noting here that the original post clearly labeled that headline as satire, a label that is also clearly visible in the screenshot Trump shared. But that also didn't stop him from saying, quote, I accept on his post. Now, notably, not everything is fake, right? Among the AI-generated images is one real picture, for example, of 19-year-old Jenna wearing a homemade Swifties for Trump t-shirt, with her reportedly confirming that the image is genuine and it was taken at a Wisconsin Trump rally back in June. And we've also seen an unofficial Swifties for Trump page on X with a little under 4,000 followers. But there's a Swifties for Kamala page that was made back in July with over 60,000 followers. And reportedly, Kamala's campaign has even been in contact with that group's founders to ask how they can support the initiative. And while that said, as far as Taylor herself, she has not openly endorsed either candidate for the 2024 election. Though you have many saying, considering her previous support for Biden and Harris and opinions about Trump, it seems unlikely that she'd move to the MAGA camp. And this is you have people saying it's weird that Donald Trump is reposting AI-generated images of people supporting him. One, in general, but two, especially considering the accusations he hurled at the Kamala Harris campaign last week, saying that she used AI to fill out crowd shots, which is just not true. But for now, we'll have to wait to see if Taylor Swift or her team, they respond in any way, whether with a statement or actual endorsement or, a lawsuit. But in the meantime, it's all in the court of public opinion, so I gotta pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts here? And then, so did you know that you could get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars by ratting out your boss? Right, all you need is actionable intel that they're evading their taxes, and boom, you can actually get a cut of what they owe the IRS. With that, all thanks to the agency's whistleblower office. Though notably, they only accept liabilities of $2 million or more. So maybe this asshole you work for underreports their income, maybe they claim false deductions, credits, or exemptions, or maybe they just don't file their return. Either way, you tip off the IRS, they review the claim, and if it's worth pursuing, they throw it to their auditors. And then, when it's all said and done, you get anywhere from 15 to 30% of the haul. Which again, if you're talking about many millions or tens of millions of unpaid taxes, that could be a big payday. And in fact, since its creation in 2006, the program has raked in $7 billion in total, with $1.2 billion of that going to the whistleblowers. And when you look at the data, you see that 2018 was actually the best year for the program by far, with the IRS collecting nearly $1.5 billion, and over $300 million of which went to whistleblowers. But then, those numbers fell off a cliff the following year, and they've slowly declined ever since. So there's this question of, well, why is that? Why is the program struggling? And well, as it turns out, the answer is actually several answers, starting with problems inside the IRS itself. Right? The agency agency's budget and staff have shrunk over the past decade and a half, so it's got fewer resources to deal with a growing workload. So, for example, if you're a whistleblower, you currently have to mail your claim to an office in Utah, which is why the program's head, John Hinman, has told the Washington Post that there will be an online portal next year and that he wants to purchase software to keep track of the claims, with him even keeping a list of 78 total ideas he would like to implement. And he actually might be able to do it thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act beefing up his office and budget. Right through that extra manpower, it'll be easier to sift through that mountain of dead-end or extremely dense claims, whether it be people trying to get back at their exes or corporate insiders who insist on strict secrecy in their